You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Today, we've got a trifecta of articles sent from somebody who sends a bunch, and I really appreciate it. You know who you are. And I took this email and I'm like, yeah, those 3 articles, those are pretty darn good. I'm just going to read them. So you know who you are. I always keep people's identities a secret because in today's society, if you're a tiniest little bit conservative, cancel culture might get you. So I don't identify anybody. Thanks for being here. What we're going to cover today is the march in the Pearl District in Portland ends with destruction, graffiti, and 2 arrests. Got a couple articles on that. We're going to cover that. And then Oregon's got this massive tax on beer and wine. Massive tax. I mean, it's crazy. It's more in tax than people make all year. We're going to cover that as well. Portland's got a lot of great micro brews that I think are pretty cool, and they've got that whole thing going. But now they want to tax it to fund a bunch of other ridiculous stuff. All right, before we get into it, if you're new here, thanks for joining. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies, but I read the news that you may or may not want to hear. If you're a subscriber, you want to hear it. So hit that subscribe button, become a subscriber. Let's get into it. A crowd formed just before 9 p.m. Saturday at the Fields Park before moving through the Pearl District neighborhood for a planned protest opposing ICE. Oh, it just all sounds so peaceful, doesn't it? And then invariably it goes from peaceful, and it makes that hard turn and just becomes violent. That's the way these things go, right? And Portland has been experiencing this like no other city on the earth. Right? I mean, that's why everybody kind of tunes into Portland because it's like, man, those people are still going hard in Portland. They're still doing their protests. They're still breaking windows. They're still graffitiing, doing a little ACAB action. I mean, just all that good stuff, right? And by good, I mean ridiculous. Portland, Oregon. An estimated 150 people marched through Portland's Pearl District Saturday night for several hours in a direct action protest in opposition to immigrations and customs enforcement, ICE. So they're kind of rotating through their causes right now. Originally, it was Black Lives Matter, and then it became a whole ICE thing, and then it kind of goes off in a direction, and then we move back, and then we hate federal officers, then we hate cops, and then we're not really sure what we're focusing on here, but this one we do know it was ICE, right? Crowds began gathering around 9 p.m. at the Fields Park at 1099 Northwest Overton Street. Once the march began, some individuals in the group spray painted the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services field office downtown because nothing says we want you to follow what we're talking about. Nothing says that like a little graffitiing. Because when you graffiti, other reasonable people look at that and go, I want to follow that guy. That is the guy that I want to follow his ideology because people who spray paint, they have it going on, right? They've got it going on. They're all Banksies, right? You know Banksy. He's that artist that he just he pops up and paints up really cool. But he is truly an artist. These guys, they're just tagging buildings and tagging stuff, and they're basically just breaking the law and making themselves, annoying. That's what they're doing. And beyond annoying, they're causing billions of dollars of damage across the United States, hitting these buildings. And a lot of times they're small businesses, and these people are just getting hammered with these broken windows, looting, protests. Windows were smashed out at a handful of businesses as well as Safeway, Chipotle, and Umpqua Bank. Independent journalists who were walking with the march said businesses were damaged, including the Starbucks downtown at 9:31 p.m. According to other independent reporters marching with the group, I mean, this has become so obvious that there's just a bunch of reporters walking along, marching with the group. A car belonging to a security company was also graffitied. Nice touch. Excellent. Job well done, guys. KGW photojournalist Richard Gordon also reported multiple windows being smashed out at various businesses. So I think Mayor Ted said he was going to crack down on this, but it doesn't sound like we're doing much there, right? I guess we got to keep reading. Did like 20 or 30 people get arrested? Because they should have probably, right? I don't know. Lots of damage in the Pearl District tonight. And we're looking at a photo from some tweets. from a tweet. Yeah, just broken, just smashed out windows. It's horrible. I mean, these are big, big windows, and these are not cheap windows. The windows at Nordstrom's that were smashed out here in Seattle a couple of weeks ago, I think they were between, the media quoted like 50 grand plus per window. Enormous expense. And these guys just go around willy-nilly bashing some windows in. Portland police began trying to clear the crowd and started making arrests just before 10 p.m. Portland police said in a statement Saturday night, response was constrained by multiple shooting incidences happening across the city. Portland, you've got it going on. You guys are just literally on fire with protesting, breaking of windows, multiple shootings. I mean, and the multiple shootings limited the offers available to address the criminal behavior in the protest. All right, if you've got shootings going on, and then we've got protesting down here, breaking of windows and graffitiing and just general shenanigans going on, guess what the police are going to respond to? You got it. The actual shootings, the crimes. And I think these protesters, they know that. They know that they're low priority. And even if they get thrown in jail, guess what? If they get that far, and I say if, because Portland, they're not going to prosecute anybody. So those guys probably, nothing's going to happen, right? So we've got multiple shooting incidences happening across the city. And I cover that all the time. And a lot of Portland people reach out to me and say, hey, appreciate you just talking about this stuff because this is going on the daily. And there's a few news channels that do cover it, but most media just kind of, that's just what happens in Portland. You got protesters bashing out windows, doing a lot of graffiti, and then, on the other side of town, we've got a bunch of shootings going on. And that's just Saturday night in Portland, It's crazy, right? I mean, it's just nutty to see a city like that used to be so cool, and it still is cool, but it's really struggling with this stuff. And why do I cover this? Because I'm a pro-business guy, and pro-business, this kind of stuff really impacts a small business wanting to do business in downtown, a small business wanting to do business in the Pearl District. And when those businesses close down and say, hey, enough is enough, had my windows bashed out, I'm going elsewhere, that impacts the employment center, impacts people who want to work there, impacts the ability of people to buy stuff there, that whole food chain that we talk about of business. So this definitely has an impact on real estate. It has a direct impact on business. And guess what Portland's doing about it? Not much. Not much. Just kind of, it's Saturday night. What else would we be doing? Maybe, maybe a little protesting, a little bashing out of the windows. It's what we do in Portland. And literally, that's what they're doing. Police said officers responded to criminal behavior and made 2 arrests. There were several items seized that could be used as weapons, including a large bat. Got the big bat. All right. And what are they playing baseball? Are they playing baseball while doing a peaceful march? I'm not sure. It's unclear. I don't know. Maybe they're just practicing their swings as they go. Just, I'm not really sure, but they got a large bat. The damage could be seen in the aftermath downtown. Windows were broken at a grocery store, restaurant, bank, shipping business, and multiple coffee shops. This demonstration came after an earlier protest during the afternoon at the ICE building in the South Waterfront neighborhood. This stuff has got to stop. You've got to drop the hammer on these folks. Will they? Will Portland? Nah. No, they're okay with it. They're all right with it. Until they're not. And when is that gonna be? It's got to be pretty soon. This stuff has gone on for a long time. This stuff has gone on since late May, right? Just running, and well before that. I mean, protesting in Portland, it's a legit sport. And yet city leadership does nothing about it. We had a protest here in Bellevue, Black Lives Matter protest, not that long ago. What did our leadership do? Well, they had a flotilla of cops following them, the peaceful protesters. If those peaceful protesters got out of line, and they had bricks and stuff, hidden along the route, they had bricks and stuff, and they were going to do some damage. They were going to do some violence, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Nobody really knows. But when you find a cache of bricks hidden away, it kind of makes you think they're not there to build a building, right? I mean, there's a reason they're hiding that kind of stuff. What did our leadership do? Just had so many cops right on their asses that they couldn't really do much. So, but in Portland, Portland's a bigger city with way more violence going on than Bellevue. And so all the officers here in Bellevue that we had trailing this peaceful protest, those aren't available in Portland because they've got real live crime going on, and these protesters, they know it. All right, second article here. 2 arrested, windows damaged in Pearl District, protest late Saturday. 2 protesters were arrested in the Pearl District protest Saturday night that left windows broken at several businesses. The protest began at the Fields Park. Some of this is redundant, but there's some really good things in here that are slightly different than the first one that's I'm reading out. I'm not wasting your time, promise. The protest began at the Fields Park near the north end of the neighborhood and continued through the Pearl District. Photos show an estimated 150 people gathered at the park around 9 p.m. Flyers for the protest called for no borders, no nations, abolish deportation. All right, is that a chant? No borders, no nations, abolish deportation. I mean, I could legit be a leader of a protest, but my sayings they'd be very, very different. Daryl Kimberlin, 31, was arrested on suspicion of first-degree criminal mischief, a felony. Kimberlin, I love how they throw that in there, and yet when you come around to what actually happened to that person, it's like, yeah, he was released on his own recognizance, and he may or may not show up for trial later or for a hearing later, but it's Portland, so, maybe. COVID. Just blame COVID, right? Kimberlin was issued a criminal citation and released due to COVID-19 restrictions, limiting individuals who can be booked into jail. Plus, we just don't really want to deal with people that are criming. We don't. Makes the stats, difficult. We got to add that one to the stats. Can't you just get rid of that? I mean, our criming here in Portland, it's not a good look for the city. We need to get rid of some of that crime. How are we going to do it? Just don't call it a crime. A 17-year-old boy was arrested on suspicion of interfering with a peace officer and third-degree escape from custody. What is first and second-degree escape from custody? What does that look like? This guy got third-degree escape from custody. He was released to his parents because he's under 18. Can't even buy tobacco products, and he's out there just protesting away. His parents must be so proud, right? I mean, just really doing some good out there, graffitiing and bashing out windows and interfering with a peace officer. That's a good start right there. 17 years old, on his way to a life of what? I don't know. Social media reports from Coin reporter Drew Marine show spray paint on the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services building and broken windows at a Starbucks, Umpqua Bank, and Urban Pantry. Urban Pantry, they hit that as well. Have they no shame? Apparently not. A security company car was also damaged. We heard about that. Police said their response was the demonstration was constrained by multiple shootings happening across the city. Videos taken by independent journalist Brendan Gutzenwager showed groups of armored police in vans as well as officers on bicycles on scene. An independent journalist recorded a police officer on a bike colliding with a man carrying a camera wearing press on his front side. You'll see a lot of these guys. They cover these things. They're independent journalists, kind of like me. If I show up at a protest, I'm just there. I don't have authorization from anybody, but I'm on a public street and I try and I want to stay closer to where the police are because I kind of view them as my friends. As if something happens, I want to be close to the cops. If that makes me a cop lover, so be it. That's not the case. But when I dial 911, I want to have a clear conscience and be able to say, yeah, I want the police to come and I'm not going to do anything that otherwise makes the police think, we probably shouldn't service this guy. So I stay close to where the police officers are and kind of away from the front lines of where the protests are going because those guys, they do not want live streamers anymore. Have you noticed that? If you follow any of this stuff, they really, the peaceful protesters, because they're so peaceful, they don't want live streamers. And that's a lot of what I've done in the past. So I've kind of gone to just videoing when I do video and Haven't covered much lately because there hasn't been much here in Seattle, but I could go down to Portland. Oh, some activity there, right? The man was then surrounded by police on bikes, setting off a tense confrontation with protesters. Oh, we got police on bikes. We got one dude doing something, wearing a press on his front side, and he collided with an officer. That is some drama. We got some drama there. But the real drama is that this stuff is still going on. Businesses their windows are being smashed. What happens? Why do we care that windows are being smashed? Well, number one, it's expensive. And then they've got to get somebody out there to board up the windows. Did a podcast on that. We talked about what that looks like, how busy those guys are. Good, strong business because, man, there is demand for boarding up the windows in Portland, right? You're just doing it left and right, willy-nilly, all the time. Board up those windows because the peaceful protesters, not so peaceful Saturday night, according to these articles, right? So we've got that. But then what happens is you've got a down day for that business, maybe a couple of down days, depending. Their revenue goes down. What else happens? Well, long term, maybe they got to let somebody go. It all intersects. And that's where leadership in these cities, they don't really understand that, nor do they care. And so they just keep letting these ridiculous protesters do their thing, bash out windows. And at some point in time, businesses say, enough is enough. We're done. We're closing down. And then the leadership will say, oh my gosh, where did our tax revenue go? We better get some of that federal dollars. We need to get some of that FEMA money. We need to get some whatever it is. The new big package going through. I think that's got voted in through the House. It got voted in the House on Saturday morning, and now it's working its way through the Senate. We'll see what that looks like. But just, $1.9 trillion. How many trillions of dollars are we going to spend on this whole ridiculous Rona thing? Lots, it looks like. Okay, my last article here, and this is more of a type article. First of all, and it's about taxation. All right, taxation in Oregon. Who knew? First of all, it's a ludicrous tax. New Oregon House bill would heavily tax beer and winemakers. Am I a big fan of beer and winemakers? Not necessarily, but I'm also not a big fan of like automotive makers or aluminum makers or, housing product makers. You know what I mean? But this is a pretty interesting one. And I do know that the beer industry, the micro brew industry in Portland, it's been fabulous over the last, probably 30 years. It's like Portland, microbrews, kind of like Seattle. Ton of microbrews in Seattle that are pretty good. They're fun to go visit, and they've got drinking rooms if that's your thing. That's not really my thing, but if you want to go do that, and if you're like a home brew kind of guy, Seattle and Portland got some stuff going on, not just peaceful protesting. Proponents are pushing the bill to fund more addiction recovery treatments and curb underage drinking and binge drinking. Okay, so Oregon beer and winemakers say a new bill proposed in the Oregon legislature would unfairly increase the tax on the price of a barrel. Oregon currently has one of the lowest taxes on a barrel of beer in the country. Each barrel is 31 gallons, and Oregon's tax is $2.60 per barrel. Keep that in mind. House Bill 3296 would increase that tax by $70, from $2.60 a barrel to $72.60 a barrel. How many time increase is that? I mean, my math is not stellar, never has been amazing. But as a real estate guy, I mean, I need to be able to do basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, a little bit of percentages, a little bit of stats here and there. But I'm going to go with that is a massive increase, right? $2.60 a barrel tax to $72.60 a barrel tax. That's enormous. What are they thinking down there? First of all, it's a ludicrous tax to go from $2.60 to $72.60 is actually just like Bonkersville, said Ecliptic Brewing founder and brewmaster John Harris. Now, brewmaster, I do like that word because it just conjures up images of this guy is a master of brewing. He is a brewmaster. Can't you just picture the guy up on a big, tall ladder looking down into this enormous vat of beer that's almost done. And, the tagline is Brewmaster John Harris inspecting batch number 4273 for goodness. I think this is just kind of cool. Harris at Ecliptic Brewing sells around 12,000 barrels of beer a year. So 12,000 times $70, that's how much more in taxes they would need to pay based on how this bill goes down. This proposal would take my taxes in Oregon, which I already pay $2.60 a barrel, times whatever I sell in Oregon. That would cost me $840,000 in taxes. I don't make $840,000 a year. Most brewers probably don't. It's not a high margin business. It's a business of love from the most that I can tell. I mean, people don't get into to get rich. Maybe you sell your brewery to a big, Anheuser-Busch or whatever it is. And that's kind of the golden home run. But, there's a lot of breweries out there that are kind of struggling, especially with the pandemic, especially being shut down. And so Oregon just has the genius idea of, well, let's just raise tax by a lot. He said the price of a six-pack of beer would increase from around $11 to $16. The bill would also raise the price of a barrel of wine by $10 from 65 cents a barrel to $10.65 a barrel. All right, so those wine people, you're getting a break. Beer people, you're getting screwed on this bill. This is horrible. Alex Sokol is a winemaker and co-president of Sokol Blosser Winery and Evolutionary Wines in Yamhill County. He said the proposed tax would be a deterrent for all wine sales. It would make it cheaper for someone to buy our wine in New York City and have it shipped here than to buy it from your local grocery store, Sokol said in an email. Interesting. These are the concepts that politicians here in Seattle, in Oregon, in California, they all have this attitude of, they won't go anywhere. They won't leave. They won't go anywhere. Where are you going to go? They have this attitude of they won't buy it anywhere else. They're still going to buy it in our stores. It won't help. It won't hurt our local retailers. People got to have their beer. People got to have their wine. Do they? Or can they do something as simple as buy their wine in New York City and have it shipped because it's cheaper than the local grocery store? Yeah, that is what consumers do. And that is not what politicians kind of factor in here. They just kind of figure, they'll just take it. They'll just bend over and take it, right? And I know that's a gruesome image, but that is what is happening all day long. And you as the consumer, you don't want to do that. So you're like, well, all right. So I'm going to go to the Wall Street Journal Wine Club and I'm going to get a case of wine shipped to my house every whatever it is. I do not drink wine. Pretty much 100% don't drink wine, but my girlfriend does. So every now and then I will do the Wall Street Journal Wine Club thing and get a cool box of wine pretty cheap. And it just kind of shows up at your house. Those are heavy boxes. I mean, they're like, I don't know. Do they have 12? I think they come in boxes of 12. It's like a smorgasbord of wine. It's just like Christmas wine. And I just look at the bottles because I don't really drink them. So it means nothing to me other than, did I get some wine that my girlfriend will like? If I did, hooray for me. If not, there's always next time, He also said his company's price per bottle would go up by $8 to $12 a bottle of wine. So you got some massive increases here. This is a tax that says to us, hey, Oregon wineries, please make your wine here, employ lots of people and pay taxes, but please don't sell it here, he said. That's funny. Make your wine here, employ lots of people, and pay taxes, but please don't sell it here, he said. Yeah, it kind of sounds like that's the that's the end result, right? Proponents of the bill say passing the cost on to the consumer is the point. They argue if the price goes up, underage drinkers or binge drinkers won't have the money to buy more. They also say this increase is long overdue. So it's long overdue, so we should just do one. I mean, it's whether it's right or wrong or whether it's warranted, it's long overdue. Just do it. let's get back to the underage drinkers or binge drinkers. Do you really think it's going to impact underage drinkers? They don't care. They mainly steal the booze anyway because they can't buy it, right? They steal it from their parents or they pay somebody to illegally buy it for them. They're not walking into stores going, oh my gosh, this beer is too expensive. I will not be purchasing this for my kegger this weekend. You know what I mean? I mean, they're just not doing that. Binge drinkers, they are, I'm going to say that they're probably alcoholics and they go hard every now and then, maybe every weekend. That's why they're a binge drinker. And if that's their thing, doesn't really matter what it costs. They're going to buy it and they're going to do it. So this doesn't really impact the true issue, which is you got an addiction issue with alcohol, right? Yeah, that's where we're going with this. And beyond that, of all the people that I've seen and talked to and heard of and read about, mainly read about, most of the people on the streets that are homeless, they're not there because of booze. Booze doesn't help. They're there due to opioid addiction, right? Used to be that a lot of the folks you'd see on the streets homeless, they're alcohol, but now it's opioid use. Plain and simple. I mean, if you want to argue that with me, that's great. But I'm just telling you what I've seen and what I've heard and what I kind of see is, it's brutal. But this bill, I don't think is going to have the intended impact that people think it will. They just want to raise taxes because we need some more taxes. We need some more taxes to get these programs going. I don't know. This doesn't seem like the right way to do it because it hammers on small business. And it always seems like things just hammer on small business because those are guys that don't have representation. And guess what? If they don't have representation in the system, let's just keep hammering on them. Let's do that. We have not raised the beer tax since Jimmy Carter was president, even for inflation. We haven't raised the wine tax since Ronald Reagan was in his first term, said Mike Marshall, executive director of Oregon Recovers. Are those reasons to implement a tax? I mean, maybe. But here's a concept that's unique and outside of the box. If you have really low taxes, you tend to attract industry to that area. It makes them easier for them to do their business. Has that been the case with Oregon? Has that been the case with Washington? Yes, it has. And maybe that's why you've got such a proliferation of microbrews, of craft brews in these areas. I don't know. I'm going out on a limb here. I might be crazy. I'm just a podcaster telling you my thoughts. But is there a cause and effect there? I think there might be. We should look into that, right? No, absolutely there is. I mean, this is not rocket science and or brain surgery. Low taxes, better business environment, businesses go there. High taxes, less income, less ability to generate profits for a business, they go there less. Pretty basic. He said, this is the proponent of the bill. He said the bill is designed to help curb underage and binge drinking. Good luck with that. Oregon Recovers has been helping construct the bill over the last 3.5 years. That's a long time. The way that we're going to do that is by raising the price of alcohol 20% so that it dramatically drops underage drinking and binge drinking. Again, where's the cause and effect there? Then take that revenue that it generates, and for the folks that are suffering from addiction, putting it into the funding at this strategic plan that we've spent the last 3 years developing and fully funding it so that we can increase the recovery rates. I am all for increasing the recovery rates. I just don't like this plan. I think it sticks it to the businesses, and that's not fair. That's my opinion. In 2018, Oregon Governor Kate Brown signed an order that declared addiction a public health crisis. All right, so we know that. But is it booze? No. Of all the stuff I've seen, it's opioid, right? I mean, that's where things are really rough. Alcohol, obviously, big percentage of there's a heavy percentage of people addicted to alcohol in the streets as well, right? I mean, we just know that. You see it with the guy who's like 3/4 passed out and he's got, that 40 ouncer sitting there. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out, right? Marshall said Oregon has the third highest rate of addiction and is last in access to treatment. That's not good, Oregon. But you are number one in peaceful protesting, right? Number one. House Bill 3296 states that revenue raised would establish an addiction recovery district for each geographic region and tribe in this state. Each district would see an increase in residential treatment beds, detox centers, and inpatient and outpatient centers. Probably 1,200 residential treatment beds scattered around the state in 36 counties, another 1,200 detox beds. I think 3,000 outpatient slots, all will be created in addition to what we currently have here. Beer, especially craft beer, is part of Portland culture, and craft breweries have made their mark from IPAs and stouts to blonde ales and sours. There's an option to satisfy just about any beer connoisseur's plate, just like Seattle. We got the same deal here. If the price of a barrel of beer were to be raised, Michael Lalonde of Deschutes Brewery said, it will have a greater impact on more than just the consumer. When you raise prices, then people buy less. Therefore, every brewery has to cut expenses, which means jobs. There's that trickle-down effect. Oh, we didn't know this would happen. We raised the taxes. All the craft brewers, all the brewmasters, they all left. Where'd they go? What happened? We don't have that revenue source anymore. All those beds we created, they're gone. What happened? I don't know. People are bringing booze in from out of state. I can't imagine that. Why would they do that? Every alcohol maker KGW spoke with said they support the need to increase access to addiction recovery resources, which I do as well, but said this bill was not the way to go about it. I don't think this bill will pass. I hope it doesn't. It's ridiculous. I'm just calling it the way I see it. The bill is still in the early stages, and if it passes, so 3 years later, and it's in the early stages, and if it passes, it would go into effect January 1st, 2022. Oregon, I hope you vote no on this, just out of sheer principle. That's what I think. So, I don't know. I don't have solutions to all this nonsense. I'm just a podcaster telling you what I think. But if this storyline comes up again, if they pass this, I'll cover it right here in the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Thanks for being here on this longer podcast. Trifecta. All right. Yep, that's it for me. We'll catch up soon. Thanks for being here, guys. Love to have you subscribe if you so see fit. I will see you guys on the next one. Bye for now. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.